Hi everyone, Sabrina here from Scrappy Tales Crafts, and today I'll be showing you 5 cards that I made using the Hero Arts May card kit. I do apologize for this being a week late. I found that this kit was pretty challenging to come up with some out-of-the-box ideas, so yeah, that's the reason it's late. I still wanted to include it just because I know the kit is sold out, so a lot of people probably have it and are still using it, so I'm just going to show you what I created. For the first card, I wanted to make a frame. So I'm going to cut 2 of those frames out of some cream cardstock using the Stitched Lawn Fawn X rectangle dies. And then also here I'm going to cut a window through my card base. And then here I wanted the X's to be on my card base, but obviously when I ran this through, it was going to cut through my card base, so I knew I was going to have to make another one, which was okay. So here I'm going to take that off and get a card base ready again. And then here I wanted the window to line exactly up with my frame, so I took that stitched lawn fawn die and placed it right in the center. If you could have somehow removed that frame, I would have. 1, because it didn't cut all the way through, and 2, because there's a crease. I don't know if you can see it, but there is one. I knew it was going to be covered up in the front completely, and most of it was going to be covered up in the inside, so it didn't really bother me. But just keep that in mind. You might want to try to remove that frame before running it through your die cut machine. Okay, and so I'm just trying to lay out what this is going to look like. And so that frame that I made is going to cover up the whole card base, like I said. And then here I'm taking the leaves. I wanted it to look like they were in a museum. So you're going to be able to see the leaves from the front and also in the inside. The leaves were really pretty in all directions, so I didn't want to just glue it onto a card. And another reason is when I was handling the leaves, I ripped 2 instantly. So they're very fragile. They're made of some kind of dainty thread. So I knew if I just glued it down, it might just rip in the mail. So I thought that this was a neat way of using them, especially since they look pretty from the front and the back. So now I'm just gluing down some acetate onto my 1 cream frame. And then I used 3-in-1 to glue it directly to my card base. And then again, I'm going to do the same thing in the front, but the inside. But before I do that, I'm going to take these leaves, and here you can see there was some like, I don't know, some little black specks on one of the leaves, so I was trying to get it off and I tore the leaf, so. Okay, and so now I'm going to take my other cream frame, cut down some acetate to fit behind that. And then once I sandwich those together, the leaves are not going to move. I know some people try to make like shaker cards and it's like a flat version. I personally just do these type of cards for this reason, if I want something to be seen on the inside. And I thought these leaves looked, I don't know, prehistoric or something, so it reminded me of a museum. I don't know, but they're really pretty skeleton leaves, and they were my favorite thing in the kit, so I wanted to use them right away. And so here I'm just kind of showing you how it looks from the inside. Pretty cool. I turned on a light so it might be better to see. And then I wanted my sentiment to be right in the center of those leaves. So I'm finding the one that says thinking of you. And I have to use StazOn, and my StazOn is really dry. So it will take a few tries to get it right. I think with StazOn, you should leave it on the acetate for a good 10 seconds and then slowly peel it away. I think that might help. But I definitely wanted to use my Misty because I did not want to remake these leaves. So I think it took me 3 or 4 tries to get it perfect. And see here, now I'm peeling it slowly, and I think that worked. Okay, and then I liked it like that, and you can leave it like that. And that would be incorporating everything in the kit. But I really felt like I needed something on that bottom right hand corner. So I have these flowers. I make a ton of cards, so I have leftovers all the time. And I'm just trying to use up some of the things that I have because they're really pretty and they do take a while to make. That flower took quite a bit of time to make, so I thought it would be pretty down there. You saw that I was looking at a pink one too. Now that I'm looking at it on camera, I sort of like the pink one more, but I think the white makes it look clean. All right, so for cards 2 and 3, I created the same card, but in like different colors. So I wanted to use this stencil. And guys, this kit, I don't know, I'm not a stencil fan, just because like literally 2 weeks ago, I was using a stencil and I used paste, Viva paste, and I completely destroyed that stencil. So I knew that with this one, I wasn't going to use any sort of paste. But I've never tried inking over it. And I should have masked the top because here you can see I made a mess up there. And then this particular stencil had a lot of nooks and crannies that wanted to pop up. So this tree does not look the best when I peel off the stencil. But what I'm doing here is I place some vintage photo around the trunk and branches, and then just on the edges of the leaves, I put some peeled paint, distress ink. And then I really want, oh, and then also I put Versamark over all of that. I later found that you don't need to put Versamark, that the panel is pretty saturated, that the embossing powder will stick without having the Versamark, so you can skip that step. Here I'm adding some holographic embossing powder, and this is probably like my new favorite embossing powder. It adds a sparkle and it keeps the color behind it true, and it just darkens it up a little, and then it gives it this like shiny and sparkly look. So I really like how that turned out. So I went ahead and trimmed it down so that you didn't see that ink splotch at the top. And then I'm going to stamp "Thank you for the beautiful moments," and then also the cute dog and cat. So you saw me stamp them with Versamark, and here I'm putting on black embossing powder. I would recommend just doing VersaFine and then putting clear embossing over. You can see I messed up my sentiment. And then you've probably heard it before, black embossing powder just spreads everywhere. I don't have an embossing tool. I feel like I don't really need one. But definitely for black, it could be helpful. So I did re-stamp that and heat it with gold. I thought that would be prettier. And I liked it so much that I did a second panel using just the gold. And so I'm just going to cover up that sentiment there. And then I wanted this whole white to be gone, so I put a black mat over the whole card base. And I think I put that paper towel behind so you could see it better. And then here I have some gold foiled strips, putting those close to the top. I wanted to tie in that gold sentiment somehow, and I thought that this was a good way. And then I'm just going to pop this whole panel up with some foam tape. I got this foam tape from Uline. It's extremely sticky, so, but I would recommend it. It's pretty cheap foam tape. And so I'm using the craft pick to help me peel that off, and then I'll just glue that down and trim off those gold strips. And then I also decided to pop up my sentiment. And I really like how that turned out. Like I said, I got rid of that smudge at the top, and I was pretty happy with how the stencil came out. Alright, and so I did the same thing off camera, same inking of the tree, same colors and everything, except this time I stamped the grass and then also everything in gold rather than black. Okay, and so I have a gold foiled frame. I cut the inside out to save some of that paper, and then I put a black mat, and then I'm going to pop this up with some fun foam and adhere that directly to my card base. So I'm going to be selling both of these as a set if anyone is interested. I think these are really pretty. I love the holographic embossing powder. And so yeah, that completes cards 2 and 3, design number 2. So for design number 3, I wanted to create my own sunset, but I'm really limited on distress inks. I do have 12 distress oxides, but my oxides are at my apartment. So I had to make do with what I had here, and I didn't have a yellow, and I really wanted to make a sunset scene. So I just took some yellow paper, and I think that did the job, and I didn't require having a yellow distress ink. So that's a good tip if you don't have a certain color or you actually want it to fade in better. This particular cardstock doesn't really take ink that well because you can see how splotchy it is. But if you have a nicer, colored cardstock, it might work better. Okay, and so I wanted to use that fancy dye, so I just cut it from some Nina Solar White. Okay, and then I'm just trying to see what that's going to look like. And then something I really love to do is paper piece. So I ran this through twice using some brown craft cardstock and some dark green. And I know this seems tedious, but I actually quite enjoy it, and it doesn't take as long as you think it does. So right now I'm just going to take the brown, and the brown doesn't take long at all because it's just the branches that are already connected. If I were to do it again, I probably would have just did that die again with that oval that came around it. Then I wouldn't have had to cut it, but it's no big deal. The oval was a little bit larger anyway, so I think this is okay. But if you wanted to save time and you wanted to be precise with your cutting, I think that would be maybe a better alternative than this. Okay, so now I'm just going to glue that down. I use art glitter glue with a precision tip when it comes to these like really intricate die cuts. All right, and now here you can watch me, at least for part of this, watch me put some leaves onto this tree. And like I said, it is tedious, but I like the outcome of it. And yeah, I realized that all these cards sort of turned out fall themed, and I did not plan that, guys. I don't know, I guess when I think trees, fall comes into my head immediately, so these would be great fall cards. Here I wanted to use the 2 kids on the swing. Again, I'm going to use black embossing powder. I won't stress it enough. This ink panel was not all the way dry, so I don't know what I was thinking here. I have a problem when it comes to silhouette stamps. I hate staining them. Inversa Fine can stain your stamps, so I don't know what it is about that, but I just don't like it. When it comes to silhouettes, if it's sentiments, I don't really care, but silhouettes, it just drives me crazy. So that's why I always go for black embossing powder. Here I'm trying to get a lot of the stragglers off, and I'm going to heat set that, and you can really see around the boy that there's some powder left around him. And so I filled in the girl more because she wasn't stamped all the way perfectly. And then I'll go ahead and attach that sunset piece to my die cut panel. Here I'm trying to take off some of the tape. I over taped on that area. Okay, and after that is adhered, I'm going to take some ribbon in my stash. At first I was going to use that light green one that came in the kit, but it didn't match the leaves on the trees. So this is just one that I pulled from my stash. At first I wanted to have a ribbon off to the side. I do end up taking it off because I think that it's too much green. So I'm just going to use that ribbon to tie a bow. I tie my bows backwards. I don't know why. I learned it somewhere that you get a better bow, but I don't know if that's true or not. But I did get a pretty bow out of that. And so I just adhered it off to the side. I think it would have been cute at the top too, but I didn't want to cover up all those leaves that I worked hard on, so I just put it onto the side. And here I'm trying to find where to put my sentiment. I really wanted to use that swinging by to say hello, but it just didn't fit inside of my scene, so I went with happy thoughts. And then, oh, okay, so this panel was really warped, so I'm putting a lot of tape on. And this kit, I don't know, it's not really my style, and I found it pretty difficult to come up with some ideas. And I know the June kit is already available to be seen online now, and it's sold out. So I don't know, I stopped after 6 cards. I just didn't want to do any more. I do think this kit is beautiful, and I like the cards I made, but I don't know, it's just not my style. I found it kind of challenging, but I am excited for the June kit, and I already have some ideas, so you will be seeing 10 of those. I think it's a beautiful kit. It's probably my favorite that they've come out with this year. And right now I'm just adding some Nuvo drops. And this is just orange and yellow. I wanted to tie in the colors onto the white. I probably went overboard, but I mean, who doesn't with Nuvo? For this next card, I chose to do a square 5.5 by 5.5 card. I later do trim it down to 5.25, but I knew I was going to do little 2-inch squares that featured the 4 seasons, and I was going to use the branches and different images from the stamp set to make. Here I'm starting with the summer panel. So what I did was I used my Marvy watercolor markers. I use these primarily on my Art Impressions watercolor stamps. I never tried them on acrylic, but they seem to work fine and they don't stain the stamp. So I used brown for the branch and green for the leaves. And then you could tell that when I stamped it, it wasn't very impressive, but when you go over it with a water brush, it smooths it over. I am using the watercolor paper that came in the set, so I do have to stamp it a few times, especially with this apple, because this marker was dry. And then it was also on textured paper, so. But you really don't have to have it perfect because the water brush really smooths it over nicely. And right now I'm using a Wink of Stella brush that was empty. What I did was refill it with water, and I put a little bit of what are they called? Perfect Pearls in a gold shade, and honestly guys, it looks just like the original pen. I could do a comparison if anyone, so I'm really happy that I found that trick. Right now I am stamping additional branches around this one with Summer Sky Memento ink, and they are water-based, so you can go over it with your water brush, but as you can see, it doesn't really smooth it over. It will dry back and it won't look as splotchy. Then I went over the apple with glossy accents, and then now I'm going to do my fall. Here I'm just showing you how I ink up the stamp. I used the brown for the branch and the red for the leaves. Pretty simple. These markers are really nice. And I think also Tombow markers would work, or the Distress ink markers. Okay, and then I put it back in my MISTI, and the same thing, I'm going to stamp surrounding branches in a lighter color. This one is Memento Tangelo. And right now they look very vibrant, and they sort of drown out the main image. I wanted them to go in the background, so you're going to see how I create a solution for that later. But again, I'm just going to smooth things over with my water brush. I did stamp a pair off screen with some yellow, and then I added a little bit of brown to give it shading, and then again I went over the pair with glossy accents. Now I'm going to go over to my winter themed square. So here I inked up the stamp with my blue marker only on the branches, so I didn't stamp any of the leaves. And then for the background stamps, I'm going to stamp them in gray flannel Memento ink. I do have the dewdrops, which makes it a little bit easier to ink up the parts where I only want it to be stamped. so I only went over the branches. It was a little bit difficult, so I took a gray Marvy marker and used that instead, but I think the dewdrop was good too. I'm just going to stamp this one little branch. I went ahead and inked the branch in brown and then the leaves in pink. I wanted to give them the illusion that they're actually flowers. And I think when you put them next to the other 3 seasons, your brain sort of registers that those are flowers because it relates to spring. So I think it looks good in the end. Here I'm just inking it up twice, and then I will smooth it over with my water brush. And I do apologize for it being dark. I live in Florida, so it's hard to predict what the weather will be like. One minute it will be sunny, and the next it will be a thunderstorm. So the next few minutes will be a little bit dark, and I'm having some camera issues. My camera was zoomed in way too much, so I'm still figuring it out. I bought a tripod, and this is a new location that I'm filming in, so I'm just kind of getting used to it, and it will get better if you just bear with me for a few more minutes. And so right here, I stamped it in a light pink ink, and I didn't like how faded that was, so I'm going to go over it with, I think this is Rosebud, and I actually like. And here you saw me stamp out that squirrel in some brown ink. I felt like it blended in too much with the branch, so I will go back and stamp it with some black ink. And then off camera, I stamped a butterfly. And then I really wanted to set those background branches to the background. So the way I did that was I took the same ink that I used to stamp those branches and just went over the whole square. This watercolor paper is really nice for ink blending, even with Memento inks. Here you can tell it's getting dark outside. There was a storm. But yeah, I think that helped set those branches back, and that was sort of what I was envisioning. So that pear and that apple, since I went over it with glossy accents, it's resisting this ink that I'm placing over it. So I'm glad that I did that. This is the Tangelo ink, and then I used Rosebud, Summer Sky, and Gray Flannel. So now I wanted to add something extra. I've been really into Novo Drops, as you can tell. I used to buy them at Walmart when they first became really popular, and I didn't like them. And so I found out that they had an old formula, and now they have this new one, and now I find that the drops keep that shape. And for this winter one, I'm using the white Nuvo to create snow. I'm just adding little squiggles, and I really like how that turned out. So here I'm going to place down my black mats. I'm not really adhering them now quite strongly, but here I see that I like the placement, and then I smush that down. Then I pop up all of my season squares, and I really like how this turned out. It was exactly how I envisioned it. It has a watercolor look to it, and you can clearly see that they are summer, fall, spring, and winter. And then I wanted a sentiment to be right in the middle. I liked the Thinking of You because it was a narrow sentiment, and I decided that I wanted a black mat behind this. And I'm sorry if you can hear rain. There's another storm outside. Okay, and then I'm gonna pop up this sentiment onto the black. Using my scissors to trim the black. And then I'm going to put some glue onto the 4 corners of that sentiment, and it's just going to lay nicely on top of those 4 squares. And I'm just making sure that I'm not covering up the butterfly. And that will complete card number 4. That one's definitely my favorite. So for card 5, I wanted to create an interactive card, but I decided that this time I'm not going to ink up my whole background before embossing. So here I'm going to emboss a tree. I used the reference on the back of the stamp set to help me create this tree, and then I'm also going to stamp the the grass. And then I'm going to take my black embossing powder. Oh, just kidding. I'm going to first stamp the boy on the bike. Now I'm going to grab some black embossing powder. This is Wow. It's pretty good. You can see that my trunk didn't stamp well. I will go back with a marker and fill that in. But I think this turned out a lot better because I didn't ink up the background first, so there wasn't a lot of black stragglers. I'm going to restamp the boy on the bike because I wanted some more black. I waited too long to put the powder on the other guy, so I just restamped it. I'm going to heat set it and then run that through my Gemini with the coordinating die. And I wanted to make the boy on the bike look like he was, I guess, cycling through the grass. So I'm going to make this into a slider card, but the first thing I'm going to do is ink up my background. Now, like I said, I don't have that many distress inks, and the ones that I do have are very dark, and I wanted this to be sort of a whimsical, bright card. So I'm going to use Memento. It does the job. It's obviously not as seamless as a distress ink, but I thought that the blue sort of looked like clouds, and I knew that I was going to cut out that panel where the grass met the sky, and so in the end I think it looks pretty good. I took the slider die from Elizabeth Craft, and then I'm also going to die cut those little circles out of some foam, and those circles are going to help the guy move on the card. I'm going to keep that inside piece that I used to cut this panel. I'm going to glue that right onto my card base. And then now I'm going to add those circles using some art glitter glue. 3 did the job. It matched the width of my phone tape. And so I wanted to create the strip that I'm going to use to pull the boy on the bike. So I'm just gonna ink a white strip with the same green Memento ink. I used New Sprout and Summer Sky. Okay, and then I needed a stopper for the end of my slider, so I placed some foam tape right at the end, and that's gonna stop that paper from falling out the other side. And then here, I wanted there to be a hidden message. So I took the happy thoughts, it fit perfectly onto this little strip, and I just placed it sort of towards the center, more off to the right, because there was a lot going on to the left. And then for some reason I put the foam tape on and took the backer off, so my stamp obviously did not turn out the way I wanted it to. You will see that I fixed that. But yes, I wanted to use that. Thank you for the beautiful moments. The foam tape that I use is from Uline, and it's double mounted, so I like that a lot. I don't have to double up on my foam tape. It's already nice and thick, and it works really well for shakers and sliders. So here I'm going to write pool with my handwriting onto that tab so the recipient knows to pull that tab to see the boy riding his bike through the grass. And then also to see that hidden message. So here I'm going to fix that sentiment by stamping it onto black and using this silver embossing powder that came in a previous kit. I thought that would look nice with the blue. And then I will hand cut that into a little rectangle and just adhere that with some 3-in-1 glue. So thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry there won't be a part 2, but the June kit will be here soon, and I plan on having that one out on time. I'm very excited to be working with that kit. If you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do that so you can see any upcoming videos. I primarily do 10 cards, 1 kit, but I will be posting a video of the cards that I made for the month of May fairly soon. So if you want to see what that looks like, go ahead and also click the notification bell so that you know exactly when I post. Also, go ahead and leave me a comment which card was your favorite. This one was definitely mine. I will be selling all of these cards on my Etsy. The Boy on the Bike and the Seasons card will be standalone cards for sale. These 2 thank you cards will be a set, so they will be 2 for the price of 1. And then I also decided to include the Thinking of You and the Happy Thoughts as a set if anyone is interested. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.